Thanks for joining me. I'm glad you're here. Today I want to discuss Pokémon Scarlet and Violet on the Switch 2. The Switch 2 has been out for about 6 days now. I hope you are all having fun and enjoying. There have been a number of games which have received updates that allow the games to take advantage of the Switch 2's hardware. Basically, the improvements that we see due to the updates are enhanced resolution, potentially access to HDR in some cases. Games like The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Link's Awakening, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those look great and run great. The Pokémon Scarlet and Violet are the games that really needed the improvement due to the increased frame rate. But whether or not these games received an update, the frame rates would have been improved. We're seeing across the board Nintendo Switch games have significantly better frame rates, smoother performance, a better gameplay experience, and much faster loading times. In some cases, half the time or less than half the time in some cases. So whether or not Scarlet and Violet got an update, the games would have run better. This update improves things such as the draw distance so that characters can have smoother animations, they can be higher quality models from a distance, but there are things that have not been improved. So what I want to discuss today specifically is my concern for Legends ZA, and that the game will not look and play as good as it can because the developers are developing Legends ZA so that it can run on Switch as well as Switch 2. This is going to hold back the game, and it's going to the presentation and the quality is not going to be as good because they are taking into account the lowest common denominator. This is one issue here that I want to point out that is very concerning to me, and I couldn't exactly understand why this was happening on the Switch, but this is the Switch 2 version, and I can now understand what is going on here. That that chunk of terrain is using a level of detail system. So in game development, when we have objects in the distance, we tend to swap them out for lower quality or lower poly count. There's less polygons so that it is less demanding on the hardware. This allows games to run more smoothly with a higher frame rate. So again, when objects are at a distance, we have them swapped out for a lower level of detail. What I can see here is the lower level of detail terrain chunk, the geometry, is not casting a shadow. I have to kill this guy, I'm sorry. He's getting in my way here. So what is happening is the terrain chunks, the geometry, are being replaced with lower level of detail. They do not cast shadows, and it results in undesirable effects such as this, where we get a little bit close to the geometry of the terrain, which is up there. And with the Switch 2, we actually can see the switch between the low quality and high quality. Oh my. Strike me down. These Scyther are just killing me right now. I'm trying to give this sort of presentation here. I just have to kill them. This is something that I can excuse on the Switch, but this is a Switch 2 version of this game, and I do not feel that presentation like this is acceptable on the Switch 2 because there is no reason to have this kind of design consideration. This is something that you would implement for weaker hardware. It's a compromise. The Switch 2 does not need to compromise in this way, and so I am quite disappointed to see something like this is an issue on the Switch 2 version of this game. I do appreciate and understand that the developers for this have an immense amount of work on their hands They are working on other titles, but it's concerning to me that this was not addressed. It would have been very easy for the developers to understand this issue and say, okay, this is, maybe we don't need to have this, because this takes me out of the experience when I see this, and I'm trying to enjoy this game, but this is something that I don't like, and I am able to switch off as a game developer. That is my primary work. It's what I do the most. I can switch off and just enjoy a game. So I'm not approaching this just as a developer. I'm approaching this as a gamer, and it has a hugely negative impact on the experience of the game for me. This flickering, where the mountains, the shadows are flickering in and out of existence. And so my concern is that with Legends ZA, we will see issues like this, because Legends ZA is designed to run on the original Switch as well as the Switch 2. So the density of the Pokemon is significantly higher in the Switch 2 version, which is a good thing if you're, I suppose, looking for a particular Pokemon, or as the young hip kids say these days, shiny hunting or shunting. So I'm sorry, I just made that up off the top of my head. Nobody says that. That's really, shunting sounds really bad. That's so look, this is a part of presentation that negatively affects all the visuals, because there are parts of this game that look very primitive, and this is actually a big part of it. This swapping out the terrain for an LOD that does not cast shadows, this actually would have been an easy fix, is have the lower level of detail cast shadow and increase the shadow draw distance. That would allow this terrain here, this terrain wall, to receive shadows. It would make environments look like a modern title. For example, have a look at this here. That should be casting shadows. That terrain should be casting shadows on the ground. And because it is not casting shadows on the ground, it looks primitive. It looks like a Nintendo 64 game. And I know people say that, oh, this looks like a PlayStation game. This looks like a PS2 game. This is a situation where that statement, there is some feasibility to that statement, because that does not look good. That is not how a modern game looks. If you look at, say for example, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, these are running on Switch 2, and at this point there isn't a reason, because the developers over at Game Freak, they have had time to improve, to learn, to bring team members on who have a stronger understanding of working in a 3D space. And yes, this does look significantly better than the launch day version of Scarlet and Violet. I have seen real improvements that are tangible, not just from a technical standpoint, but from an artistic standpoint. But the next Pokemon games should be better. This is one of the biggest franchises in the world. It's one of Nintendo's most important franchises, and it doesn't feel right for this franchise to be launching major titles at a level of quality that is lower than what it can be and what it should be and what its customers and supporters are asking for. People are asking for these games to just meet the level of standard of a modern video game title that is really at full price. We're paying top ticket prices here, and there's a quality of presentation that is not being met, even with this title. And yes, I understand that this was a free update. There is a limited amount of time and resources that they can spend on this title. So I can respect and understand that. So I'm not here to say anything negative about the developers working on this, about anyone behind the decision-making process, but people expect more and people deserve more. We can see, for example, something like the shadow draw distance. It's not that far. I'm very disappointed because in trailers it looked like that shadow draw distance would be farther, and it should be farther. Everything in this field should be occluded by shadows. The Switch 2 is strong enough to where we do not need to have a short shadow draw distance. The reason why we have limited shadow draw distance is for performance considerations. The more shadows you have to render, the more real-time shadows like these, it has a hit on performance, it reduces the frame rate, but the Switch 2 is plenty strong enough to increase that shadow draw distance, and it will improve the overall presentation of the game. And this is not nitpicking, this is a concern, because it seems like there wasn't anyone involved in this process that has the authority to make that decision, to look at this and say, look, we need to improve the overall presentation, and it is easy to improve the overall presentation by adjusting this one thing. Programmatically, this will not take long at all. This would take minutes to adjust a global value and to increase the shadow draw distance. This would take minutes to fix. So my concern is that the development team and the management team did not take a few minutes to look at that and say, we can make this look significantly better. The presentation for this can be way better by doing this one thing. That is my concern, and I'm going to watch the Legends ZA situation closely, because I am going to be quite disappointed, not just as a longtime customer and supporter of this series, but as a developer. I want to see these games be the absolute best that they can be. So I'm approaching this from multiple angles, and I am concerned about that, because I'm seeing a number of things here that could have been significantly better, and the work could have been done in a very short amount of time to improve these things. So that is what I wanted to discuss today. And I hope this video doesn't come across as nitpicking or attacking this game or attacking the developers. I make these videos purely out of support and encouragement, and I want my fellow gamers who also enjoy these games in these series, I want us to have the best games possible. And you don't achieve that by ignoring these kinds of topics. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize you can do this. This is really cool. Doing a little spin, and then he rears up. I didn't know you could do that. That's pretty neat. Thanks very much for spending some time with me. Thank you for watching the video. And if you are enjoying this game, I would enjoy hearing from you and just hanging out with you and chatting with you in the comments. I make these videos primarily just to have fun and hang out with you guys. I don't really want to use the channel for industry and professional work that much. I really just want to have fun and hang out with you guys. So you see, I don't take sponsorships. I don't try to sell you things here. I just want to talk about cool, fun stuff. Thanks very much for spending some time with me today. Be well, take care of yourselves, enjoy some good gaming, and look, if you are out there shunting, that word's so dumb. Nobody say that. Shiny hunting should be called shiny hunting, not shunting. That's dumb. See you around.